Welcome back to another edition of the Edge podcast. Publisher Brenden Slaughter here for BeaversEdge.com, coming to you guys live with TJ Mathewson, BeaversEdge.com writer and KGO radio host. We're back with another edition of the podcast. Hope you guys have been doing well. Thanks for checking out BeaversEdge.com and coming and listening to TJ and I. We're here on the opening weekend of Oregon State baseball. The Beavers will start their 2023 season in Surprise, Arizona this weekend with a 4-game slate. We'll get into that. TJ was at Oregon State's baseball media availability yesterday, so we'll grab his thoughts on that. And we'll also look ahead to some of the offseason news that's happening in the Pac-12. A little bit of rumors that they could be looking at expansion. We've obviously got the media rights deal in tow as well. So lots of stuff going on here in the offseason. Beavers Edge, pleased to be back with you guys. TJ, what's going on, man? Feels like it's been forever, man. How are you?
It has been forever. Got to go to Arizona last week. Just scouted out a little bit for the Bees before they went down there, although they're in like the corner of the Phoenix metro area, far away from where everything was actually happening over the past week. Spent a little bit of time in Tempe and Scottsdale, the nice parts of the Phoenix metro. Got some sun, watched some golf, got some Super Bowl merch. It was pretty good. Ate some great food. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, tasty.
So many options down there. So I was very pleased, and I'm sure the Beavs will get pleased to go and get some sunlight down there in Surprise.
Oh my goodness, yes. I mean, TJ, can you share some of that vitamin D through the screen? Like, I'll take some of the vitamin D.
I hope so.
Absorbed, man.
It's sunny today. It's sunny up there in Portland, is it?
It is. As we are recording this podcast on Wednesday, it is sunny with blue skies at the moment. The problem is, it's quite cold. So, I mean, again, coming at this as a warm weather guy, I'll go ahead and preface that. Not a big fan of the cold.
I'll tell you what. Just because it said like on Friday when we were at the Waste Management Open, it was 75 degrees and warm outside. Sure. By the afternoon, it was perfect, like shorts weather. It was great. But the mornings, I will tell you, were about as cold as it is right now. I mean, it was freezing. Yeah. We're standing there in line, waiting to get in. Of course, if you haven't gone to the 16th hole on the Waste Management Phoenix Open, you probably should. But to get into the stands, you need to get there at 6 in the morning or earlier and wait in line before the gates open at 7. And while you sit there and you wait in line, it is freezing cold. It is rigid.
Yeah, no kidding. What time were you guys getting your first tee off?
So there was there were groups from the day before on Thursday that actually hadn't finished.
Oh, gotcha.
So we had golfers in the 16th hole by about 7:30, 7:45.
Oh, nice,
which is crazy.
Nice. But early though.
First time I went, February of 2020, we went on a Saturday, and there were no leftover rounds from the day before. So the first golfers didn't make it to 16 until about 9:45 in the morning. So you have about 2.5 hours to sit around and wait for the first golfers. That's just to get your seats on the 16th hole. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's funny, TJ, that you mentioned that, because real quick, for anyone that's out there, I feel like anyone that took and planned a vacation in February of 2020 should just get a little kudos and a medal, because they were, ahead of the game on what was going to happen, a month later. No big deal, right? I remember.
Well, I was in school.
Oh, okay. So there you go. Like for me, I remember taking a big vacation. I took a big vacation in February of 2020, and I was like, oh, well, glad I didn't plan that out for a month later. But neither here nor there. Glad you had a good time down there in Arizona, TJ. And now that you're back, obviously went to Oregon State's baseball media availability yesterday. You caught up with Mitch Canham for us. What was the mood that you got from the baseball team before they headed out for Arizona, other than the fact that they're looking forward to some sunshine too?
They're pretty high on this roster. I was listening back to Ryan Gibson, who came on our radio show yesterday and talked with Mike Parker and John Warren. It's so this was taking place right as the media availability was happening. So I didn't get to listen to Ryan Gibson live. We were instead hearing Mitch live.
Sure.
But I thought the quote, besides from all the stuff Mitch says, what Mitch loves to talk. You ask him a question, he could talk for about 10 minutes if you really wanted him to about that subject. But so before we get into what Mitch said, the thing that has really stuck out to me the most of hearing from this pitching staff is Ryan Gibson said that he thought the talent level of this current team was at the same level, just less experienced than the 2018 roster.
Wow.
He said that pretty confidently.
Wow.
The team with Trevor Larnach and Stephen Kwan and Adley Rutschman and Nick Madrigal and
Yeah. Caden
who am I
Grenier,
missing? Right,
yeah,
Kenny
just keep
Grenier.
going. Just keep
Right.
going.
That was an
Wow.
a national champion loaded roster. So he
Wow.
said that, despite the fact they're less experienced, he said, I'm confident athletically and just skilled wise. I think these guys are as talented as a 2018 group. I was like, well, that's a pretty high bar to set.
It's a
So the
very
way
high
I
bar.
think about it, so Mitch, echoes that same confidence. They really love all the young guys and the new guys they brought in. There's going to be a lot of new faces. They have essentially an
Yeah.
entire outfield to replace, and they have an entire starting pitching rotation to replace. So if you think about the guys you lost from last year, right? You're losing your arguably two best hitters, Justin Boyd and Jacob Melton, and you're losing, Cooper Jerpy, an All-American ace, and you're losing a very quality weekend guy in Jake Phoenix, and you're losing
Right.
the guy who you thought was going to be the ace this year, and Will Frisch. He's hurt, and you're like, well, he's hurt. Maybe he won't sign, but instead he does sign. So you have to replace an entire new rotation. So as it sets right now, it sounds like Trent Sellers is starting game 1 on Friday. Jacob Komatz is going to start game 2 on Saturday. And then after that, they'll mix and match, an AJ Lattery, a Jaron Hunter, and a couple other names that slipped my mind of what to take away. But even though they're replacing all those innings, it seems like they're pretty confident, especially in a guy like Trent Sellers, of what he's going to do.
Yeah, it seemed like, watching the video myself, it seemed like Mitch does have a lot of confidence in Trent Sellers. He'll obviously get the ball on Friday against New Mexico. The Lobos are going to be the season opening opponent. 11 a.m. First pitch down there in Surprise on Friday. So make sure to grab a cup of coffee and some early lunch for the first baseball game down there in Surprise. They got 2 games against New Mexico on Friday and Sunday, and then play Minnesota on Saturday and UCSB on Monday before returning next weekend for a non-conference series at Goss Stadium. TJ, I'm actually, we'll get it more into this weekend real quickly, but real quick, I'm very surprised, actually, now re-looking at the schedule again, that Oregon State's got 3 games at Goss Stadium in February. Usually we see the Beavers on the road for the first couple weeks, not just the one. Obviously with Goss Stadium being, I think, 90 or 95% turf. It might be all turf now. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, TJ. Can't remember off the top of my head if it's the pitcher's mound specifically, but it can play through quite a bit of water. And, this time of year, it can be pretty wet up here in the PNW, as you know.
We were talking to Josh Warden on the show earlier today, and Josh will be down there calling the first 3 weeks on the radio. So he'll be on the call when he comes back here. They come back here to play Coppin State. He was looking at the forecast. He says he doesn't envision it's going to be too wet next weekend.
Oh, nice.
I don't think it's supposed to be wet this weekend either. Funny enough, the Ducks are opening at home. Did you realize that? I think they're playing Xavier at home for 3.
That's incredible.
So pretty extreme.
Just from all my years of following Oregon State baseball and then all my years of covering Oregon State baseball, it has just been like lock stop. Like, you are a team that's in a northern climate, you don't play at home for the first week, at least 2 weeks. So hearing that about Oregon is very surprising. But hey, if you can play, hit the weather correctly, TJ, it's, you can play baseball right now. It's sunny, beautiful, nice, little crisp, but no problem, right?
Just don't have one in on your Don't have one in on your hands.
Yeah, gonna be a little stiff. But back to this weekend. Obviously, Mitch mentioned that Trent Sellers is gonna get the ball on Friday. Then he also said that Jaron Hunter is gonna get, Komatz on Saturday, and then from there, like you said, most likely a mix of Jaron Hunter. I heard Ian Lawson could maybe be in the mix too. A couple other guys. That's the interesting thing about these 4-game series, and I should say, there's only, I think the Beavers, let's see, they have a 4-game series this weekend, just 3 games against Coppin State, but then 4 against Cal Poly the following week. So some of these 4-game series, TJ, they kind of give you a chance to go a little further with your arms as far as starters, as opposed to regular conference games when you just need 3 guys in a weekend to quote unquote start,
Well, it's kind of the same concept, because in all those 3-game conference series, you usually have 1 or 2 midweek games that you'd need those guys for anyway.
Very true. Very true.
So whoever starts on Monday, you could say, well, they might be lining up then again to start for a midweek game, or who starts the fifth game of a week if you have two
Sure.
midweek games? I
Sure.
don't know. So, it's something to think about, and it'll test the depth early because there's no certainties really in this Beaver rotation. You have the return of Jacob Komatz, and they're really in love with what Jacob has done, and he's grown over the offseason. He's up to 5 pitches that he likes to throw. In terms of velocity wise, there's not really a jump up there that much, but apparently his changeup has grown quite a bit and what he likes to throw. So it'll be interesting to see for him, but that's like the most certain thing in the rotation. And Jacob Komatz last year, he was fine. He was fine. I mean, he ate up a lot of innings, but he wasn't going to blow anyone away and really, be a true dominant Friday guy. So that's why I look at the rest of the rotation and say it's unknown. It really is.
Last thing on the pitching before we switch gears and talk a little defense, a little offense, and we'll obviously get into the offense, which has a few returning players and not quite as new as the pitching rotation, as TJ mentioned. But right off the bat, we got to go ahead and mention the pitching staff. Mitch Canham dropping to the media yesterday, TJ, that Ben Ferrer is going to be out of action for undisclosed amount of time as he's dealing with a bout of mono.
So surprising. So they dropped that on us, and Ben says he feels fine. Mitch made it a point, if you go watch the video on BeaversEdge.com or the BeaversEdge YouTube, he said Ben has told him multiple times, hey, I'm fine. But they said they test him once a week to say, hey, we want this all the way out of your system.
Sure.
We want this to not be an issue. We talked about this before we started the podcast recording. Mono can take a whole range of time to be done. Ben Ferrer could be out the next month and a half. If they really think that's necessary, he could. And that is big because he is your weapon out of the bullpen. I don't know how else to describe it besides weapon. Hey, we're in a pinch here in the third inning. Our starter just got blown up. Okay, calling Ben 3 innings, boom, dominant.
Right.
Do you need a guy in the 8th inning to come in and really just blow guys away all out for 1 inning? Boom, Ben's your guy.
Yeah.
Right. Ryan Brown was, a version of that. He mostly closed, but as Mitch said, we're going to try and work Ryan in the most high leverage spot. It doesn't necessarily need to be the 9th inning.
Right. And
that's going to increase his load.
Right. And not to mention, there's also positions where I'm, based on what I've heard from Mitch, in this most recent availability and the one a couple weeks ago previewing the season, he's even just talked about how much he loves Ferrer's versatility. Like you said, how he can go get 2 batters here, go do 5 innings here, Oregon State's fighting their way out of a loser's bracket. You need to go start like that range of confidence. I mean, is it a stretch to say that he is their best pitcher overall right now?
Could be. I know, I usually weight it. Starters are obviously more valuable than a reliever is. So if Ben was eventually by the end of the season gets elevated to the Friday starter, then yes, absolutely. In terms of locking down a game you were leading, though, I think Ben is the most important first guy out of the bullpen. I mean, you could probably he's a preseason All-American for a reason.
Right. And
it will be a big loss. It'll be a big loss. And at this point, at the beginning of the season, if the offense gets hot like they did at the beginning last year where they're scoring double-digit runs at will, not as big of an issue. But if they're playing some tight games here early, it's going to be really it's going to be interesting on this coaching staff and how they're going to piece together sort of that bridge to Ryan Brown and guys they have confidence in, because I don't know if they have any more confidence in anyone on the roster besides Ben Ferrer. That level of confidence. He's that good.
Yeah, and I even saw watching that video from yesterday that you mentioned over on the BeaversEdge.com YouTube, Mitch Canham's like, I don't hand out captains, but if I was going to, Ben would be like the first guy, up near the top of that list. So I think, that speaks volumes to where Ben is for sure. And I think,
and this is a guy who's been in the program for 1 season.
Right. And I think that's special.
Or 1.5, but.
Right. And more than anything, as we say this, obviously wish Ben a very speedy recovery. Definitely hope he gets better soon, because that's definitely a rough bout of something to deal with. So hopefully he'll be back and healthy soon for the Beavers. But you mentioned the outfield. There's a couple holes to plug there, TJ. But for the most part, there's some good offense coming back. I mean, you've got Garrett Forrester back. You've got Travis Bazzana back. You've got some other pieces. What do you like so much about the offense, and who do you think are some of those candidates to kind of maybe fill the early spots in the outfield?
Man, outfield is a tricky bunch. They like Ruben
Yeah,
Cedillo, Lynn Benton
yeah.
transfer, Lynn Benton
I've
Community
heard.
College
Yep.
right down the road here. They really like him in the outfield. You Brady Casper is
Yep.
back as well. He'll be an option out there. Easton Tolt, who's caught a lot, but they really like his option in the outfield. Gavin Turley as well. We'll see some time
Yes.
in the
Yeah.
outfield. I mean, we like people remember. I mean, no, Gavin Turley was supposed to be like a second round pick this past year
Yeah.
in Major League Baseball. He was going to command of like over $1 million of signing bonus, but decided to come here to Oregon State as well. I mean, that's the kind of talent that's going to be out there in the outfield with Gavin Turley. I am
Hmm.
really excited to watch him in the home opener a week from Friday against Coppin State. I'm going to try and be there. I want to watch him hit a ball a mile and a half. We'll make sure we knock out all the work we have to do, and then we'll get over to the field because it'll be interesting for an 18-year-old kid to go there and to get some of the praise that he's gotten. And if you hear Mitch yesterday, he's like, I feel bad for anyone that parks in left field while Gavin Turley's hitting. He said
Yeah.
Gavin hit the same car 3 times
Ooh. Yeah.
in the
No.
same round.
And let me tell you, TJ. Back when I was a student at Oregon State, I would park in that parking lot frequently, and that was when Oregon State had Trevor Larnach in the mix. He would hit some deep balls
At
every
least
now and
Trevor
again too.
Larnach's a lefty.
That's true, right? But it would be, there would, same kind of thing. I remember there were some balls that definitely got hit out. I'm trying to think if there was anybody. Not thankfully, none ever came close. But oh yeah, like that.
KJ Harrison.
Yeah, I remember KJ put a few balls over that wall. I'm like, I'm trying to think, man. It's like you're asking me to dig back deep into the bag of tricks, dude. Some 5 years ago now. I'm like, oh yeah, how many baseballs we see go over? That was a quite the year. But yeah, no, I think that's as good a praise as you can get early on, TJ, because going back to the last time Oregon State had, and don't mean to say this negatively to take away from what was accomplished the last couple of years, but the last time Oregon State had what I believe to be was a true like national championship contending roster was that 2018 team. And usually I've noticed to get to that point, you usually need to have about 2-3 guys on your roster who just flat out chose not to go to the pros when they absolutely could have. And I remember back to 2016 when Pat Casey was like, oh, wow, we got Nick Madrigal and Caden Grenier. Both those guys probably could have been playing Major League Baseball, but they're here, right? And then you saw, extrapolated more guys, obviously, than just those two, but you saw how big that was to have two guys that were, arguably pro prospects playing college baseball and why Oregon State won so many games, if they were a big reason why. But offensively, where do you think the power is going to come from beyond Forrester and Bazana this year?
It's Turley. And they're not. It's not gonna.
Do you think the expectations for
not,
him are that big right away, like right out of the gate, kind of which very well could be.
I mean, he's having not watched him and only read stuff online. He's
me
probably
too, right?
got the best power on the team, right? I mean,
Yeah.
we don't get to go to practice and watch.
No, yeah.
But taking everyone's word, he
Yes.
probably has the best power on the team as a true freshman. I mean,
It's incredible.
That was his calling card when he was going to, go into the draft. I mean, this guy's got pro power, and we're going to see that this year. Maybe he's not going to hit the volume of home runs this year, but he'll barrel a baseball, and then it's going to probably make your mouth drop open.
Yeah, I'm excited. Oh, I'm excited. It's going to be really exciting.
Brenden, another thing. You said Forrester. I mean, I'm expecting, from what Ryan Gibson said, he's like, I'm expecting a good power jump from Travis Bazana. He said he's really hitting the ball in the air with backspin to all fields. That's a true power profile for a guy who's, a shorter frame of Travis and playing second base. The bat only has, so much power potential in it, but it sounds like we might get, a little bit of a jump from power for Travis Bazana, for as good of a swing as he has. And again, as long as you just keep hitting that sweet spot and get the ball in the air and hit it with some backspin, it will travel, and it could travel out.
Yeah, no kidding. And like I said, I'm excited to see, both those guys, and hearing that note on Bazana really makes me excited because that kid was very special last year. So again, Friday is going to be first pitch down there in Surprise. Make sure to stick with BeaversEdge.com, as we'll have a running game thread tomorrow on Friday, tracking the opener down there for the Beavers. So kicking off another baseball season. In a way, it's kind of crazy because it feels like, Oregon State just finished with Auburn not too long ago. That still is very fresh in my mind, and yet here we are ready for another season. So definitely excited to get after it, and make sure to stay locked as, we'll myself and TJ and we'll have, Oregon State baseball coverage throughout the season. But switching gears here for the second half of the podcast, something we got to touch on because it is so prevalent right now across the Pac-12 conference. Not baseball, no. We're going to switch gears and talk football in February. Yes, football in February, folks. The Pac-12 conference reportedly in the last couple weeks has been eyeing some expansion candidates, TJ. There's been some rumors of SMU. George Kliavkoff was seen at an SMU basketball game, being all elbow to elbow with the muckety mucks up there in SMU. And then obviously hearing some good things from San Diego State to the grapevine as well. Their university feels really confident about their chances at expansion into the Pac-12. And then the big other balloon that's weighing over all the rest of it is the media rights deal. And, that obviously is at the forefront because that's set to expire, I believe, at the end of this season. So, TJ, we'll obviously get into the expansion a little bit and obviously the media rights, but let's talk just very simply with the two teams. Did SDSU and SMU do anything for you?
It's better than not having anybody.
Right.
To start. It's better than letting USC and UCLA leave and not having anything to replace them with. I mean, if you think about it, is SMU even the number one team in Dallas? I assume it is because the Dallas-Fort Worth market is the number 5 media market in the U.S. That's not terrible.
Fort Worth is going to have TCU first.
TCU, probably. Right? Okay.
Yeah. But after that,
when you look at the market, it throws them all together.
Sure.
So, regardless if people watch or not, they will be on people's TVs in area.
Dallas,
right? You'd think. Well, actually,
yes.
Maybe not even on TV.
We'll get into that.
Talk about that later.
We'll get into that.
San Diego State makes sense academically. I know they're a very good academic school. Number 28 media market, Southern California. Fun fact, only Ohio State has more combined men's basketball and football wins since 2010 than nice. San Diego State does.
Yeah,
for that's a plus there.
They are competitive.
I keep reading all these things about how bad the Pac-12 fumbled USC and UCLA. The media rights deal with USC and UCLA would have been easily over $50 million per school if they stayed. They might not even get 30 now.
Yeah. The fact that we were put, and I say we as a collective Pac-12 whole here, we were put into this position by, missteps by the previous commissioner, I think is a big part of it. I think the Pac-12 may be overvaluing, their product a little bit. I think the Pac-12 not being aggressive with expansion, right away. I think I saw someone post on BeaversEdge.com, why not grab XYZ team 3 years ago? Great question. It's absolutely a fair point. But yeah, the media market has completely shifted as far as, like you said, with those things. But reality is you still have to find a way and chart a path forward. And as you mentioned, I don't know all about the details of academics and all that, but I know that San Diego State was recently named a Tier 1 research university. For the academia part of this, apparently that's a really big deal. Puts San Diego State into a new kind of threshold as far as academic prowess. As TJ mentioned, San Diego State's always competitive in football. Every time Oregon State's played them the last, I think they played them twice in the last decade. 2 tough games. I think back to last year when Utah went to the Rose Bowl and San Diego State beat them in Salt Lake in the preseason. So there's definitely some competitiveness there. Obviously, Kawhi Leonard went to San Diego State. So there's the basketball program that you talked about. And, that's still very recent history. SMU is a little more interesting to me because, I think it gives you the aspect to, recruit Texas a little bit and, kind of fold the Texas market into it. But at the same token, you're kind of already recruiting Texas anyway. I think it just kind of turns out to be a warm body, so to speak, kind of like how we saw, I think San Diego State fits to bring back the Southern California mold that they need, but SMU fits the mold
Hmm.
of a warm body. And, I was kind of laughed at this a little bit on my radio station when I mentioned, maybe this is a fact. SMU still has a ton of history in football. It's history that's 35, 40 years ago, but it's still history, right? What's in between there
Right.
is death penalty stuff, and you can't rewrite that. But Eric Dickerson, Craig James, there are some big time, football history at that university. So that part of it's appealing to me from that
Hmm.
standpoint. And then you said the Dallas TV market, but the bigger question I think here, TJ, is from what I have heard through the grapevine, it's that the conference may get more money if they're willing to mix and match their TV deal. Say, maybe ESPN or Fox or whatever takes a percentage of it, and a percentage of it goes to a Prime Video or an Apple TV Plus or something along those lines. And it's part streaming, part cable, part, national TV, depending on the game. And I think that's the best case scenario for Pac-12 right now, TJ, is probably trying to cozy up to one of these streaming services, i.e. a Prime that is making, Prime Video NFL football this last year. It was a little bit of a workaround for the first couple weeks, but by the time the midseason got going, just about anybody knew how to fire up Prime and so on and so forth. I'd like to think most of you out there get those packages with that little smiley face delivered to your door. So you're already, one step of the way there. And I think it would be something unique that the conference could hold as their own, kind of like TJ, how we see baseball
Like the
has some
Pac-12 network?
maybe, but as baseball has worked with Apple TV Plus so far.
Sure. I know we don't have that much time left. Just like the issue I have with that is I just don't think there's much TV space available. So like Fox is no longer interested in anything Pac-12 related. They have USC and UCLA, and they have the
Right.
Big Ten. They don't feel like they need anything else. NBC is set. CBS today was reported today that they are no longer involved in Pac-12 negotiations.
Yep.
That's three of the major cable sites that are like, yeah, we're good. They're just like, we're better off not carrying you at all.
Yeah.
Right. ESPN has interest because they still have a 10:30 slot available. They have that
Correct.
after that dark ESPN slot available. But that's about it. There's not much else room. From what it sounds like is that the conference is going to go with that ESPN slot, some assorted, sprinkled stuff elsewhere, maybe, and then like 80% Amazon where they can actually be on at a decent time for a 4:30 kickoff, for a noon kickoff too. Like there's the Pac-12 was not aggressive enough with their negotiations, and they're really paying for it. What the Big 12 did is they went out a year before well before their media rights expired, and instead of putting their rights out on the open market, they went to ESPN and Fox, their current partners, and said, "Hey, let's negotiate our next one." And they did that, and now they're going to get $31.6 million a year per school, and they won't have to worry about it. While the Pac-12 is sitting here being like, anyone want us? Anyone want us? Because right now they're a little desperate, and that's like it's not going to be good financially because all these networks and the streaming services know they don't have to overpay for the Pac-12 because the Pac-12 has no one to bid against.
So I guess in that sense, TJ, let's look for a shorter term deal. Maybe you won't win, but maybe you go, hey, we'll do a shorter term deal. Watch what happens with all these quarterbacks in our conference this year. Right? Maybe you can build back up some of that momentum, and you want to, because that was the thing with Larry Scott, was it was a very long media rights deal, maybe shorter terms, and reevaluate if you're not going to get what you want. But last point on this, TJ, maybe I'm left field. Am I the only one that thinks it'd be kind of cool to have the Pac-12 on Prime Video? Like, name me someone you know, TJ,
that it wouldn't be cool,
who's not a Prime subscriber in 2023. Are you living under a rock?
It's not that it wouldn't be cool, and it's not that it wouldn't be hard to watch. It's just like, can you get people to watch? Can you make money? That's the most important thing.
Right.
Can it make money? We don't know.
Maybe.
Right? No, there's been no conference. And maybe it's a boom, and maybe the Pac-12 leads the way. It's like, hey, this is the future of television. Everyone loves streaming. and we got there first, that would be the dream scenario. But
Right.
as of right now, it's just like it's all a question. There's nothing certain about it.
Right. And I think that's a good point too. And I don't mean to say it, negatively. I'm just saying, like, with this world where we are all so getting used to streaming, whether it's popping it up on our phones, popping it up. And I think, what Prime did with NFL football this year. And again, first couple weeks, I remember hearing all the sports bars couldn't find it and this and that. But, once it settled in, you didn't hear a whole lot of people upset that Thursday Night Football was on NFL or on Prime. Was that because, how it worked out and it was Thursday Night Football? Maybe. But I think the Pac-12 has a potential there. And like you said, TJ, maybe they find something that is new and breaking. But at this point, still a lot of questions, a lot of uncertainty. And at this moment, the viability of the conference is still very much in question. So TJ and I will obviously be back with another edition of the podcast here in the next week or two. We'll continue on, and we'll do a breaking podcast if we hear any more anything new with the media rights negotiations and whatnot. But as it currently stands, Pac-12 looking at expansion because the more teams could lead to more money for the conference. So I think they're going to leave no stone unturned in that. I think we could see some developments in that kind of neck of the woods soon. So we'll all keep tabs on that. TJ, thanks for jumping on the pod, man. Looking forward to jumping on next time, and we'll talk some Oregon State baseball and some conference expansion next week.
Sounds good.
All right. Well, thanks to everyone for watching this edition of the Edge podcast. We'll be back with another edition.